Good evening and welcome to the Arundel Camera Club virtual live stream for Thursday, December 2nd, 2021. My name is John Milliker and I'm the club president for the 2021-2022 season. The Arundel Camera Club was founded in 1957 and exists to promote the arts, science, and education in all aspects and fields of photography. For more information about us, please visit www.arundelcameraclub.org. Thank you for joining us for our virtual live stream, and for the time being, the Arundel Camera Club has made the decision to stay virtual only until a time when the majority of our club members and officers feel safe enough to make it back in person. We will continue to monitor the COVID situation and make choices with the help of all of our members on when we can finally get back to our plan of hybrid meetings in person and also virtually. And before tonight's program, here's our program's chair, Christine, with our upcoming schedule.
Good evening. Next week on December 9th is our photography contest on the theme of interesting perspectives. Be sure to keep an eye out for an email from our contest chair, Ron, on uploading the photos. Then we're moving our holiday party from Thursday the 16th to Sunday the 12th. The party will be generously hosted thanks to Jackie Colstock and the Woolon Institute on Furnace Branch Road, where there will be plenty of space for us to spread out. The party is a potluck, and we ask that attendees sign up to bring a dish to share. The party is bring your own beverage, and we will also have our normal gift exchange for those interested in participating. Please do not go over $25 if you decide to participate. For more information, please see the email sent out by Mike Thomas or our post on the Facebook group. We hope to see you there.
Christine, I'm gonna bounce in right here. The club will be providing soft beverages, but if you have beer or wine, you're welcome to bring that yourself.
Okay, thank you. And then we're on Christmas break until Thursday, January 6th. And then we'll hopefully be having a photography contest with an open theme, but we will get more information out on that later. And now let me hand the program over to Ron Pfeiffer, and he will introduce tonight's photo critique session. Good evening, Ron.
You there, Ron?
Okay, I'm here.
It's all yours, bud.
Accidentally clicked out for a second, so my apologies. Okay, let's take a look at the reminder. Christine did talk about the contest next week. I'll send out a lot more information probably tomorrow, and you should be prepared to start getting your images in there. But with the theme is unusual perspectives. What is it, John?
Interesting perspectives.
Interesting perspectives. Make sure you attend to that. If you have any questions, give John or I a call. So on the next thing, this evening, our critique leader is Ed Palzensky. He has been a judge here before. I want to give you a little bit more information about that about him in a second. John, can you move to the next one, and we'll take a look at Okay, John, still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, now we go. All right, that's our schedule, and Christine went over that. Apologize, we're a little bit disconnected here for a second. One more, John. Okay, we've done critique sessions through this fall, and in a bit we will need to, in January, maybe talk a little bit more about that and see what worked and what didn't. And we've had some really great people with us in September, October, November, and now this month. Ed Palzensky, who judged with us at least a couple times last year, and maybe even once the year before that, Ed. Would that be correct?
Right,
okay.
That's correct.
All right, so pretty much the setup for this was to be virtually somewhat what you see in this picture, which is to say that just some people sitting around the table with their photos and talking a bit about, how to make them better and learning a bit. It's a different learning experience from the usual contest because we're not going to say in or out, blue, red, or yellow ribbon or whatever. So this is our last one for 2021, and we'll see what happens the second half of the year. Next, John.
Now, Ron, if you're checking out the Facebook, that is about 5 or 6. You make sure you keep the meeting session up, because that's going to be real time.
Okay. All right. Will do. All right. The way the critique session is going to work, we normally the first 2 times had 6 photographers. This time and last time we'll have 5. The notion is that the photographer will have about 15 minutes with the critique leader for a conversation. Each photographer brings around 4 photos to discuss. If we have time, the other photographers in the group could have an opportunity to ask a question or make a comment as well. So if those of you who are watching this on Facebook, use the chat feature if you would like to post any questions, and Christine or John or I will be watching those to make sure that we have them. So again, no winners, no ribbons, no losers, no points. Okay. John, we're up for the next one. All right. Ed's been one of the most interesting photographers I've ever had a conversation with. He does get the notion of judging and looking for the communication ability of an image, and not just going through and picking all of the wrong things and giving you feedback on it. All of that is really useful, but he really is someone who seems to understand vision and thinking ahead about the photograph and constructing it. Very, very thoughtful. And if you go to his website, and Ed, I apologize, don't have it up on the feed, but maybe you can remind people in a bit what the website is. But it's really just an outstanding collection of photographs. He is the Gaithersburg Camera Club Grand Master. His images have been used online and print publications. He's a past president for Gaithersburg Camera Club and been in several board positions. Also has been a member of the Maryland Federation of Art. He is an MPA certified judge. He is a member of NANP. He has developed and taught numerous photography classes at Montgomery College, and he has done workshops for a number of individuals and clients. So I think that we have somebody who really has a lot of expertise and just a wonderful way of talking with people. So Ed, I hope I said the right things. What's your name? What is your website, please?
edpalphotography.photoshelter.com.
Okay. We'll put that out as a follow-up so people have a chance to take a look at this. So the next thing we're going to do is going to look at each of our photographers this evening. While we're on that page, here are your 5 friends that are part of our program tonight. Cheryl Kerr, Fred Venetia, Ed Nahenke, and I haven't seen Ed on here yet. Ed may be getting here eventually. John Verdi, who's a relatively new member, and Bob Weber, who many of you know. So these are the folks that we're going to be reviewing this evening, and we're going to start right off with Cheryl. So Ed, I'm going to turn it at this point over to you, and we're going to, these are the images that Cheryl brought in. Normally we look for about 4. She happened to accidentally get us 6.
That's correct.
Exchange, but we looked at them and thought, let you and she decide what you want to talk about this evening. So I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let you kind of go from here, and we'll see where it goes.
Very good. No, thank you very much for that introduction. And as was mentioned, I do like to investigate or inquire as to what the story is behind people's images. It's obviously quite varied. So I will look at, obviously, the subject, couple technical issues, which, sometimes really don't come into play that much as the actual image. Guy Tell had a great statement about photography, and I really enjoy quoting him. And he always asks the question, is your image of something or about something? And I really, really love that phrase. So this is something that's going to be kind of forefront in my mind. And when we look at the images, number one, to all the submitters tonight, thanks for submitting your photos. I think it is important to get some feedback from other folks in terms of one's development as a photographer. And what I'm going to ask each one of you as we start looking at your photos is I'd like to know what stimulates your photographic interest. Tell me what your intent or your goal was for each image, kind of referencing and, looking at, why did you take this image? And that will kind of kick off our own discussion about each one. And we'll go ahead and make comments. I mean, obviously with more dialogue from the actual submitter. I do want to say that this is your time. So I'm here just to kind of, look over your shoulder, if you will, and see what you see, and I'll tell you what I see, and we'll maybe meet somewhere in the middle. So if we could start off with Cheryl's first image. And Cheryl, tell me a little about yourself and what stimulates your photographic interest. What's your passion, so to speak?
I got a camera in 2015, and I've been taking pictures. I like landscapes. I really like nightscapes.
Good.
And I really like astrophotography.
Great. Did you shoot the recent lunar eclipse?
Yes, I have about 880 images of the moon.
And you're still plowing through them.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I also got the comet on Wednesday morning this week.
Oh, excellent. Good for you. Are you shooting close to where you live so you don't have to travel far?
No, I belong to the Howard Astronomical League, and
okay.
We have 2 viewing sites, and I'm a key holder. I've been active in the board there, but I've taken a break for a while.
Excellent.
We have 2 viewing sites there. One is at Alpha Ridge Ball Fields. We have an observatory there, and then the other is at Carr's Mill. So we can go there. But for dark sky stuff, no, you got to drive. And
right.
So I drove to Assateague Island for getting images of the comet, and I also imaged Orion.
Excellent. See, that tells me you have a level of commitment. That's why I ask questions like this. But good on you. I'd love to see some of your astro stuff. You have a website?
No, I just have a little Instagram thing I do.
Okay.
And I'm still learning. I'm moving into PixInsight for processing, so it's a massive learning curve.
Sure. It's a great journey, so just keep on continuing. Super. That's exactly what the sort of thing I like to hear. Tell me about your first image here with the tree and the roots.
This is at Cache Lake, and I have been trying to photograph beech trees with some success for years. And this is a beech tree that is in the middle of the trail. I love its roots. I find they're interesting and structural. I've tried to take pictures of this many times.
Yeah.
And this is the first one that I actually like. So I thought I would provide it for a little bit of feedback. This was taken in the rain just after dawn a couple weeks ago.
So your colors were nice and saturated. The first impression when I saw this was very favorable. I tend to shoot outside myself, and it's always fascinating to look at structures and shapes in general that are presented to us in nature. And I noticed that the colors were quite intense, which led me to believe that it might have been a moist or at least wet environment. So I really appreciated that. That's a very nice time to go shooting, you know, as long as you've got the proper rain gear on too. I love the fact that, number one, you did focus on the actual ground and root structure. Shooting something like this can be very, very difficult because you're trying to capture something that means something to you, obviously, if you shot this before. One of the things that you can try, I don't know how far this is from where you park your car or whatever, but if I can make a suggestion that if you have a portable footstool or a small ladder, that you try taking a picture of this from higher up as well, and that'll give you another perspective. What takes away from this, at least from me, is the fact that you have these cut logs in the background, and that kind of detracts the eye from the beautiful shapes of the roots. How do you feel about that?
I support what you just said. It bothered me too.
Okay.
I didn't. This Cache Lake had a downburst this year. This is close to my home, and my husband and I, for the 2020, we walked it pretty much every day.
Great.
And there was a downburst, and there's so many trees that were fallen, and this is the remnants of that event.
I see.
So, I agree with you. I would prefer them not to be there.
Sure. Tell me what this picture says to you.
Beech trees are fascinating because they're slow. They're fast growing when they're young, and then they are slow growing when they're old.
Okay.
And I love their bark, and I love how their roots get all wrinkly where the swell of the trunk is at the roots. I like their surface roots that go across the ground. I've tried photographing beech trees for years, and I find them very difficult subjects. And this caught me. It was raining when I was here, and the shininess of the rain on the bark really drew my attention to them, and it made them darker. We don't have that silvery gray anymore. And I liked how the roots stretched across the ground like they're reaching for the lake right adjacent. So.
Sure. I would suggest trying to do some close-up shots on the bark the next time.
Okay.
To show the differences, because that can be quite a dramatic shot, especially with the different colors like you were mentioning, and I mean obviously the textures as well. But this has got a lot of potential for you to develop as you go forward.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Next one, John. This is a beautiful shot. When I first saw this, it was like I was almost there. So please tell me more about it.
Yeah, this was taken in the Glen Canyon Recreation Area in May of this year. And I met this man who He's a photographer, and he and I just started palling around for 9 days.
Wow.
And we were here, and there were clouds coming from the west. So this is looking west-northwest.
Okay.
And it was around 3:30, 3:40. And so the sun is coming down. So you're looking at the picture at the mountain. The clouds are coming in from the west, and over my shoulder, my left shoulder, is the sun striking at these low angles.
Right. You're just starting to get some good side light.
It was the most unbelievable thing I've ever seen in my life. This is a massive pano. It was literally a 10-image panorama.
Outstanding.
And I handheld it, and
Yep.
I cropped it down. So it goes off on both sides.
Sure. No, well done. I've done big panos like this myself. And again, I don't want to talk about myself, but just to reinforce your interest, I've done handheld panos with up to 12 images that have come out perfectly fine.
Yep, this one did too. And I would just love this thing. For me, it feels like it's powerful and has this a feeling of permanence that, and
Yep.
I just was wondering if that conveyed through this image. I mean, because this thing is an old volcano, and these are like ash dunes
Okay.
all around it, and the weathering of this whole environment is of a many millennial is just the whole timescape thing took you back in time and history. I mean, it's just an amazing place, and I don't know if any of that conveyed, and that was what my hope was.
It does. It's very obvious to me. It's a old geological formation, and the breaking through of the light came through to me, especially with your gray clouds in the background. This actually reminds me of images taken in Iceland, because you run into the same phenomenon, because it's always very cloudy there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're patient, you have the sun peek through and give you some great highlights and great shadows. So this is very well done. Yeah, nice capture.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Next. This is the one I wanted to ask you about. You're on. Go.
Okay, so again, this was taken in the Kanab Canyon. It's a very strange place. The canyon has been turned over. It's owned by the federal government as a park, but it was turned over to a company, and they bury people and animals here.
Oh.
It was the most unusual thing I've ever experienced. But it's an incredible canyon in Kanab area, and this was in the afternoon, and the sun was setting. This one wasn't one of those days with beautiful clouds, but the sun was setting, and these weeds were lit up. And
Yeah.
literally, the sun was just striking them, and the contrast with the shadow in the back made them glow, and I couldn't resist the structure of them. They look like they're
There you go. You'll have to look at my website. I'm really into plants and structure and lighting, and that's why I kind of smiled when I saw this. Do you have any idea what the plants are?
I don't. I just know that they're old flowers that are not there anymore, and it's just the stamens and the stems.
No, nice capture and nice background. It's very complimentary. You know, very often when you go out walking and shooting like this, it is always very important to keep your eye on what the light is doing. It just lights things up like you just wouldn't believe, and you just have to act quickly because it's very fleeting. very, very fleeting. But I really, really enjoy this. I mean, again, it's a very simple image. To me, though, it's very expressive because you caught the light just at the right time. So kudos to you. Just in terms of an overall photograph, maybe a little crop on the left and the right just to clean up the edges, and a little crop from the top, and you've got a really dynamite image. Excuse me.
Okay, thank you.
Next. Classic shot, lower Manhattan.
Yeah.
Were you on a workshop or did you do this yourself?
I went up with a group of ladies, and it was a workshop, but I wasn't really getting. I just was doing my own thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, this is my first time to go here, and I really wanted to work on focus stacking.
Great.
And I used a light pollution filter because this was like this weird light behind me was like a sodium vapor thing, or a mercury vapor. It was green. Everything was like,
okay.
Yeah, super green. So I put my light pollution filter on, which I use for Astro, and I basically kept it on all night.
Yeah, great. Good move. Is there a reason it's a little tilted, or is it my monitor?
Yeah, no, I think it might. I don't know why. I think it's bothering me, and I don't know what the heck's going on.
Okay. The original wasn't crooked like that?
Which part is crooked for you?
The mid horizon. It looks like the left side's a little bit higher than the right. I don't know if it's my monitor or my perspective or whatever, but it looks just a little off kilter. It's a very good exposure, and obviously you did use a stacking technique given the sharpness of the rocks in the foreground as well.
It was also a pano. This one.
Okay.
This one I did it, and maybe if I tell you how I took it.
Please.
I took so it's three images from left to right.
Okay.
And 3 images from bottom to top.
Gotcha. So 6 total.
And I don't know if it assembled itself in an odd way, but I thought I tried to get the horizon straight.
Yeah, it looks crooked on my monitor.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead and just play with that.
Okay.
And see how that looks. But it's a very nice capture and a very nice exposure. Your experience with shooting at night for your Astro subjects really shows.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm always a big fan in terms of crossing over in terms of shooting different subjects and techniques, and then adapting those techniques for what really interests you, and you get some very interesting results. So kudos to you for doing this.
Well, thanks. Yeah, this is my first time to try doing the focus stacking.
Focus stacking? Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. In fact, I actually do an hour presentation on focus stacking. Maybe I'll come to your club and do it for you all. But I love focus stacking. It's a great technique. How are we doing on time?
Well, we're running a bit past what we should, and I'm wondering if you might take just a real quick scoot through the next two.
Absolutely. I will make a quick comment here, and we'll move forward. If we have time, we'll come back to these next two, Cheryl.
No problem. Thank you.
So next one. I love this one. I mean, I'm a wildlife shooter, and you really have a beautiful capture here with a number of elements. Great foreground, the water, all the birds in the sky. You've got the moon, and I think that is Jupiter, correct?
It's Venus. It was
Venus. Okay. And you know what impressed me about this, and it's a little known fact, that most birds migrate at night. So that's what this reminded me of, even though these may not be migrating birds, but that's what it reminded me of. So very nice capture.
Thank you.
Next. Tell me about this one. I wasn't quite sure what you were after.
I am glad you're asking because I really am looking for guidance.
Okay.
This was taken on a club field event at Spruce Knob Lake where we did.
Sure, West Virginia.
We did a camping trip.
Logging country.
Yeah, this was dawn and the sun was just coming up and this mist was on the lake, and I'm trying to learn how to photograph mist with the light, and so this year has been a search of light, so all these pictures are
good.
Light. Yeah.
Let's come back to this if we have time, but it does have some potential. But my overall comment would be try it at a different time of day.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So next photographer.
Our next photographer is Fred Vernicia, and Fred, you're still awake down there, aren't you? You're muted, Fred.
Yeah, I'm still awake.
Okay.
Good evening, Fred. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Good. Congratulations on the MPA winners.
Oh, thank you.
You're quite welcome. No, I caught the name. So tell me a little about yourself and what you like to shoot.
I like shooting in studios, but lately I've been doing nothing but wildlife and
Sure.
I just shoot to be shooting. You know,
Good.
if I see something interesting, I'll be shooting a bird and all of a sudden I'll see that a moth or something, or I'll
Absolutely.
and I'll shoot that. Or,
Absolutely.
I'm standing there taking a picture of something else, and all of a sudden, something shows up. And I
You
say,
bet.
Oh, wow, let me get it.
It's amazing what you can see if you just stand in one place and just look and just experience it. I often enjoy doing exactly what you were just saying. So doing studio and wildlife, you do primarily studio and you just started wildlife?
Yeah, since COVID.
Okay, sure,
Since
sure.
COVID,
No.
I've only shot in the studio last year.
Okay.
Two or three times.
Oh, sure. Okay, let's go to your first one. Tell me about your capture here.
Okay, well, what happened here is I didn't really want to shoot these geese. Okay.
Sure.
And I shot these geese and I posted it. And Scott Dine in the camera club looked at it and I said, you ought to crop it a little different. And he showed me how to crop it. Like,
Okay.
I had a different way. And when I cropped it down, I said, oh, wow, that's it. So I just figured I'd put it in and see what other people thought about it. But
Absolutely.
Mine was a little longer. It was higher. It had more to it. And he said, crop it down a little bit. And I just want to take his advice and gave it a try. And I said, oh, dang, he's right.
No, that was a very good suggestion. Very often shooting wildlife, that is the focus of the image. And sometimes you see people including too much of it around it, although the context could actually help explain what you were doing. I love what you captured here because you did capture a moment of these three geese actually interacting with itself. Can we mute the one guy?
That's John.
John, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
What's that? I'm sorry.
This is really the goal of a good wildlife photographer, to catch those things you just normally don't see, or if you do, it's just a fraction of a second.
Right.
So I really compliment you on seeing this, because as you said too, excuse me for interrupting, When we go out shooting wildlife, it's like, oh, geese, I'm not going to shoot those guys because they're all over the place and we see them all the time. But an interaction like this is very rarely seen.
Right. It was kind of lucky because what was happening is they were flying in. It just so happened 3 of them came flying in, and
Yeah.
I was shooting in rock and roll mode. So
Of course. I live near a park that has geese and other wildlife. And some years ago, I was watching the geese, and I actually caught 3 geese dipping their head in the water at different stages. And it literally was a going, gone shot where you saw part of the head, none of the head, and then even none of the neck. And again, if you're patient, you're able to catch special shots like that. No, this is very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next shot. Tell me about your monarch.
Okay. Well, what happened here is I was looking for some birds, and this guy just showed up,
Yep.
and he went in about 2 or 3 different spots. He
Sure.
just landed up right there. And what I did is said, okay, you want your picture taken? Let me take your picture. So I got
Absolutely.
I got a 200 to 500 or 200 to 600 on a crop sensor. So I have to move back a bunch to do it. And I just moved back, and I think I got to go at least 9 feet away, and then I cropped in a little bit. It just so happened he was in the sun. The sun was going down. It was just one of those things, and I said, oh wow, we got him good. I took several pictures of him. He was just there, and I wasn't looking for him. I was looking for something else, and he just showed up.
Absolutely. The ability to capture something like this with a long lens shows your technique. And I know that this is tricky to do with a long lens. I do the same myself, and you can get some great close-ups and macros when shooting with a long lens. It's just very, very, very dramatic sort of image. One of the things that I would recommend is the head and the portion of the body just behind it. Try and open up those shadows a little bit to give it a little bit more detail and texture. Otherwise, it's actually a pretty good exposure. Some butterfly photographers might say, "Oh, you need to shoot all the wings, and the one in the background's not sharp, and this and that."
Right.
Nah, I mean, this is actually a very nice capture because you caught him in action. He's got his proboscis going down into the flower, and you've got the whole front end of him nice and tack sharp. So I really applaud the effort.
Yeah,
and again, you have your eye open for it too.
Yeah, he was there to take my picture.
Exactly, and that's
I don't know
exactly
that much
what
about
happens.
it. I don't know that much about butterflies. It's just like
Sure,
here we go.
Sure. The it's fascinating because again, once you get outside and you start seeing patterns around yourself, whether it be of the flora, the plants, or the actual animals, insects included, you really kind of get to see the whole picture. And that's when things really come alive. And for you being out there looking for birds and capturing this fellow, again, I think is a whole part of that experience. So keep on doing this.
Thank
Next.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay, it's all yours.
Oh, I shot this one at the dam, Congolese Dam, 2 weeks
Sure,
ago.
famous place. 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and what happened was the weather was terrible, and nothing was out. And
Sure.
It just so happened, I got there, and 10 minutes there, boom. After I took a few pictures of him. I'm in rock and roll, and he's coming up and doing his thing, and just so happens I was the right spot at the right time, and Just let it happen.
Yeah. You've heard the expression that's credited to Louis Pasteur, chance favors the prepared mind. And I think that applies a lot in wildlife shooting, where regardless of what your conditions or either absence or noticeable overproliferation of birds, you just got to be ready to really take that particular shot. And it's very unusual to see a head-end shot like this. When I first saw this, I really appreciated the fact that you've got them coming right at you and looking right at you as well.
Yeah,
And,
they're not like a model where you can tell the model, turn your head toward the light a little.
I know.
So, like when you're taking this picture, it's just not one. You're looking at,
Absolutely.
30, 40 pictures.
Absolutely. I'll often go out. One of my favorite places is Huntley Meadows down in Alexandria. And I'll rip off, 1,100, 1,200 frames and come back with maybe 10 or 15 really good shots if I'm lucky. Because again, there's so many variables involved when shooting wildlife. But this is a very nice capture. Your wings, your shadows, and everything are quite good. And it's a nice action shot with a very unique perspective. So again, nice capture.
What do you think about coming in tighter? If if I came in tighter with it,
I think you're close enough. I really
you don't think I ought to
do.
go in any closer?
No, I think you're close enough.
Ed, if I can break in, is this the one?
Right, it is.
That was you edited. You tell them the story about this so you can kind of get the context.
Okay.
Here's what happened is when I took this picture, I looked at it and I wanted to get in real close. So I cut the wings off. And all you could see was the eyes, and you knew it had the fish in it. Okay. And,
Gotcha.
And the judge said it was a beautiful picture, but you cut the wings off.
Yeah.
So I redid it, pulled it back.
Yeah.
And I kind of like it like this.
Absolutely.
I kind of like it like this, believe it or not. We'll see it again.
It's true. When you see an image like this, and we're always taught the eyes, the eyes, the eyes, the eyes, whether you're shooting models or animals, that there tends to be a notion of, okay, I want to see that face closer. I want to see the detail.
Right,
okay?
Exactly. That's how I feel.
Oh, absolutely. Several weeks ago, I live in Clarksburg, Maryland, and I'm near Black Hill Park. So that's my little playground when I go and shoot and practice different techniques. But 2 Sundays ago, they had a Raptor Fest, and a local raptor rescue group, along with falconers and other bird handlers.
Okay, I think we lost.
I think we did. Lost it. Give him a little bit of time to come back in.
Okay.
The way to shoot stuff like that was really bird portraits, because they're holding them, they have the hands, they've got the cables, et cetera, et cetera. And they were very happy.
Excuse me, just a minute. We lost you for about 3 or 4 seconds. We lost half of that conversation.
Oh no,
Ed, your connection is showing suffering a little bit. Can you turn your video off?
Turn my video off.
The icon on the bottom to the right of the red hang up button.
Let me.
And that'll make your audio a little bit better.
I'm trying to find myself. I don't see myself.
So on the bottom of the screen that you see here with the slide.
Yes,
just
I got it.
There you go. And just
turn that off.
Just click the big button. There you go.
There you go.
Okay, how's that?
Fine. Great. I can hear you real well now.
Excellent. Okay, sorry about that. I live near Black Hill Park up in Clarksburg, Maryland, and one Sunday they had a Raptor Fest about 2 weeks ago, and they brought just all kinds of extraordinary specimens and birds and falconers and handlers, et cetera, et cetera. And one of the things that sort of venue presents itself to the photographer is shooting bird portraits, where you're really shooting from 3/4 up, including the head, or 3/4 down, however you want to look at it. And that allows you to get really close and actually see the detail, the feathers, the texture in the eye, which is just phenomenal with birds. And Fred, what you were saying was almost like, okay, I want to see that texture. I want to see that detail. And it really is very exciting to be able to see that. So if you have any sort of bird fest close by or coming up and you hear about it, by all means, I shot it with a 70 to 300 lens, which gives me a lot of nice latitude in terms of focal length to really have the bird be in the frame without any cropping at all. It's just absolutely mind-blowing, some of the nice detail that you can see. Some have wings and some don't have wings. So it really is, kind of a choice. But I'm glad you included the wings for this. Yeah. Okay, next one. Okay, tell me about your portrait here.
Okay, I was on a shoot, and this particular model has won a lot of prizes for me.
Okay, good.
And what do you call it? What we were doing, we were shooting outside, and it was really bright outside, so I had to use a fill light, high-speed sync. And
good.
You see the shadow, and I just took it up nice and close with a 200 or 70 to 200, and I just liked it because it showed a lot of detail.
It's a great shot. No, it's a very, very good shot. You being a portrait shooter, know that your backgrounds are important too. So just in terms of the overall portrait, the only thing I would do is just clean up the background, the railing and whatever's coming out above her head there on the left.
Okay.
There's something.
I figured it was okay because it was blurred out, but a lot of people said that.
Yeah, it'll draw your eye. That probably primarily, the railing maybe not so much, but if it's a portrait, it's a portrait. And if you're allowed to clone it out, go ahead, because then you really have the focus of just the model. And it is a great shot. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of David Hobby. So I play with flash myself. In fact, I use flash outside sometimes, maybe 20% of the time, because I do like the ability to fill in some of the light, especially if I'm shooting wildflowers and, given the lighting conditions that may be there or maybe not there. But this is very well done. Yes, very well done.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, John Verdi. John, I think you're up now.
Okay.
Good evening, John. How you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Excellent. Tell me about yourself.
Well, I started taking pictures seriously about 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I've been taking them all my life. I just retired from 47 years of teaching college. And I like pictures that normally of things we'd pass by,
Sure.
not pay attention to. I like street photography. I like to capture a moment that's disappearing.
Yeah.
I like the abstract. I do some of that, but really I'm just beginning, and
Good.
I need a lot of help, so please help.
Well, what did you teach for all that time?
Well, I taught at St. John's College in Annapolis, so
Sure.
we teach everything. So I taught
Okay.
everything.
Were you more in the arts or the sciences or?
Uh, you know, the sciences and ancient Greek and music and
Oh
philosophy,
boy.
the whole business.
So you're very
We
well
don't
rounded.
Yeah, we don't teach art there, so I didn't do that.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so let's see your first image. The bar scene. What were you after here?
Well, again, this was up in New York, in Soho.
Good.
I was just passing by. In fact, I don't think you can tell, but there is a piece of glass in front of this scene. And I was struck by a couple of things. One was the kind of plethora of bottles there and the sort of symmetry with the lights hanging. But then the woman off to the side, I especially liked the turban or whatever she's wearing on her head in that color.
Right.
And also she looked like she was waiting. But of course, if you look carefully, she's on her phone.
Right.
And nowadays, the phone is always there.
Sure.
In a way, nobody's lonely.
Yep.
But one might think she's waiting for someone, but who knows? The phone is, she's making some kind of connection. But I just kind of liked the, just capturing her. The one part of it I don't like, I don't know how important it is, one part anyway, is that other person right behind her. I wish I'd like to get rid of her.
Wow.
But the bricks, the brick wall,
Yep.
which go horizontally, the bottles, which are all parallel and go vertically. I
Yep.
just like the kind of lines, but the human figure is neither horizontal nor vertical. It's a human being, so she really stands out that way.
Yes. Yes. No, it's a great capture, and I like how you explained that, where here we are as humans and interacting with one another. And as it turns out, it's like, well, we're using our phone instead of talking to another human or being, accessible, if you will. I really did like the shot. The textures, the composition is very good. One of the rules of doing compositions is it's always better to have 3 things as opposed to 2. So you have 3 lights in the upper part of your image. In terms of processing, one of the things that I would recommend is in the middle central left of your photo, that's either a window or a mirror, and it's very bright. So if you could just burn that down a little bit, and then directly above it, you have a strong horizontal bright light too. Just kind of burn that down a little bit so your eye doesn't go there. Because see, right now, my eye immediately goes to the girl with the phone because of the menu item just to her left. So that's where my eye is going to go. So it always will be attracted to the brightest area of your image. So that's a very, very important thing to remember. Your eye will always go to the brightest part. So if that's where you want your viewer to look, that's great. But if it isn't, then your eye tends to wander throughout the image. But I really like this image, street shooting, capturing candids, can be a lot of fun. It can be a lot of fun and very entertaining. Not necessarily to the person you're shooting, but certainly with what you want to capture. So that's a nice shot. Next one, please. You're welcome. Let's go to the next image. Okay. Yes, the shutters, please.
So this was, where were we? Old Sturbridge Village in Massachusetts, back in September. But primarily what I've been thinking about a lot lately is the interplay of light and shadow. but not the kind of shadow that's made by light being cast on an object, like shadow on the ground, but a kind of shadow that's really close up to the light.
Yep.
I have a few other pictures in which I'm kind of looking at that, and I thought this was an example, besides the symmetry of it, which I like. I mean, I was looking for something symmetrical, even though the blinds or whatever they are tilt in. I thought that it did raise questions about how light and shadow, when they're very close together like this, create a sense of depth or maybe a kind of an illusion of depth. So it was really a sort of experiment. I also like the color of this, but that's primarily what it's about. It's about light and shadow. Again, not the kind of shadow that's cast, but the kind of shadow that's right up against the light.
Mm-hmm. Very high contrast.
Yeah.
And you're looking at, if you will, extremes of light, where you're having point, counterpoint. And you've got this great contrast. So that's an interesting concept, especially with non-traditional captures in terms of, shadows, the way we would just automatically interpret them as being grades of light as opposed to very bright versus very dark. Right. And you've got this very high contrast between the two, which I find fascinating. You've got a lot of neat geometry also in your window with the blinds. The use of geometry within an image is very important. And as you learn by shooting more and more, and it doesn't have to be anything that's got an obvious geometry, but if you go out to the street and shoot, you'll start seeing geometry. You'll start seeing rectangles, squares, triangles, circles. Circles are a very powerful geometric piece. And if you look at and study some of the Renaissance painters, you'll see a lot of these lessons. Do you like the Renaissance painters with their use of dark and light? Okay. Yeah. See, I would kind of go back maybe and look at some of those paintings and see if you might be able to translate some of the concepts into what you're trying to do here, just to kind of develop that and see where you wind up. You never know. Yeah.
Good, yeah.
But this is very interesting.
Thank you.
Next image. This is cool. I love when people capture these little instances. Go ahead, John.
So this was just last week. We were in Mexico. We went to the Mayan ruins at Coba.
Wow.
And it was we had bicycles and it was, but that part was fun. And then there was a sudden storm. And this was after the storm. So I was walking back. This is a mangrove tree, which of course we don't have here, and they're all over the place. And I liked the shape of the root, so I took a number of pictures of this root with water, and then suddenly there was the sun. And I thought, that's the picture I wanted, because in looking down, which is what I'm doing, I'm looking down at the root. The root is kind of snake-like, it's sinuous through there. In looking down, I'm seeing up. I'm seeing the reflection of what's above me.
Right.
And that's, again, this is a kind of geometrical picture.
Sure is.
But but I was lucky. I mean, and as I was taking this, it was funny. I was taking this picture. I was with my daughter and I were there, and a young guy came. He saw me looking at this and taking pictures, and he came over and he started looking, thinking he might see something like a scorpion or who knows what. And I said, no, I'm just a photographer. I'm seeing the sun. And he understood what I meant, that it wasn't anything, as a tourist, you might be interested in. But of course, I was
Good.
very interested in it.
Good. No, I really like this. You've got some wonderful textures here, and you've got a very strong graphic element with the diagonal going from left to right, which gives the image some visual tension or movement, if you will. And then for you to capture the sun reflection as a starburst within the water, I think was a really a nice addition. Were you shooting this at a very small aperture?
I was, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually when I try and capture a starburst, I'll do at least f/18 or even smaller.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you get some very, very nice results. I like the fact that you were able to capture sharply the roots from the mangrove, and you've got some nice subtle coloration as well as the detail. And your shadows are nicely opened up. They're not blocked up or dark. You can see some really great detail. And so I thought this was very interesting. I don't know what you've named this, but you should incorporate the site that you were visiting into the title of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Kind of do a play on words maybe with reflection or distillation or, stars, sun shining on, in the reflection.
Yeah.
But no, I really like what you're trying to do here.
Good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Next one, please. This is my favorite. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, this was my favorite. I mean, I'll say one thing and then I'll let you talk.
Okay.
But I have gone into, secondhand shops, antique shops, you name it, looking for old items or old books or whatever. And you very often will see something like this, meaning just some old photographs bundled up for sale. And I just thought that this was absolutely fantastic. It just captures a sense of time, number one, given the subject matter and the style of the bathing suits, but the fact that it's bundled with this twine. So I just really like this. Go ahead.
So this, this was in an antiques shop down outside of Austin, where my shop is. And I titled it Captured because I'm interested in the whole notion of how we think a photograph captures something, a person, scene, reality, whatever it is. So in one sense, these women, who knows who they are?
Right.
I have no idea, which I think is important.
Right.
They were captured when the photo was originally taken. The photo itself, as part of a bundle entwined with this, twine, the photo itself is captured.
Right.
It can't break loose. And then I captured the whole thing once again. So I think that's part of what another thing I've been thinking about with photography is somehow that initial naive assumption that there's something to be captured, and the camera does that. And I think this is a kind of, I'm trying to, play with that idea of being captured. The women too, obviously, are captured. The twine goes right across them. One even thinks the twine goes behind them.
Right.
So in that sense, they're captured. So it's a kind of, how do I want to put it? It's an idea picture.
Sure.
Although it is also one of my favorites. It's kind of simple. I was lucky to
There you go.
get it. And the tag, photo bundle, $3. And I thought, who would pay $3 for, it must have been about 4 photos there of people they don't know.
Sure.
Because we think we take photos of people we know, especially photos like this. but it's especially important here that we don't know these women. We don't want to
Sure.
know who they,
Right.
anyway. So I can go on and on about this kind of conceptual, it's a sort of conceptual photo.
Exactly. Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of reasons why I like this. You can read so much into this, and that's why I really enjoyed it. Here you have an old-time photo, two women, unknown, and you've got this twine just wrapped around them, and it's like, are you imprisoning them because they're going to run away? I mean, you had to put so much string around it, or gee, I wonder what the other photos are like. It really piques my attention. Now, I'll just share with you all that if I saw something like this sitting in an antique shop, I might actually have spent $3 to purchase these photos.
Yeah.
Simply because for the historical significance, because I don't know what's on the other photos, but in my earlier life, I used to do quite a bit of photography of railroads and trains back in the 60s and 70s, because all the major railroads were consolidating, and a lot of structures, rolling stock, locomotives, stations, they're all going away. So even now, when I go back down into Virginia or West Virginia, I'll visit some of the antique shops and look for stuff like this, because you might be able to find a couple gems here and there.
Right.
But I applaud you for taking this.
Yeah,
Yep.
and my daughter for my birthday last week did go back to this store in Austin and collected a bunch of loose photos. They weren't bundled like this one.
Right. Excellent.
So I have to go through those and see what I'm going to do with them.
Very nice. No, very nice capture. I really like this. Really like this. Okay. Let's go to the next photographer, John. But John, before we start, I have a quick bio break here, okay? So give me a couple minutes and I'll be right back.
Okay. Now, Ed Nahenke, do you have audio going today?
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you pretty well. Yeah, you're going to be the next photographer coming up.
Okay,
And,
thank you so much.
And Ed will be back in a few moments. And
Sure.
really appreciate the conversation we've had so far this evening. It's not all about getting rid of the problems and pictures. It's more about trying to make an image that really tells a message. And I think John Verdi's, John, your presentation was and your photographs are really interesting, because they're helping us to kind of look at this in a little broader sense than just technically getting a picture correct. It's more about getting philosophically where you want to go with a photograph. So Ed, while Ed's coming back in a minute, we'll have about 15 minutes for you to look at, go over your pictures with Ed Balzinski, and then we'll be on to Bob Weber, who's our last presenter for the evening. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Appreciate your being willing to join us, and he will probably ask you a little bit about what the pictures are. And we have 4 images you've brought in. One is of a woman with some dogs and some other structures and so on. So, Ed, are you back yet? Okay.
Ron, I made a comment in Facebook chat, but I kind of wanted
Okay.
to put this out on anybody watching this later or on YouTube. If you enjoyed these critique sessions, whether you were a critiquer, someone who's getting their photos critiqued, or you just were a spectator and enjoying enjoying these, can you send us in some information? Send us in what you liked, what you didn't like, and kind of give us some feedback on potentially taking these forward.
Yeah, at this point, we don't have any more scheduled for the rest of the year, and we're not really clear on what value people felt they were adding to the program for the year. So that information would be really valuable to us. Now, some of the comments we're getting on the side, Scott Dine says Vivian Mayer's photographs were discovered at an estate sale, bought for a song. The purchase has turned them into several books that have sold well and now have a gallery representation. It's a wonderful story, worth Googling to look at and read about. And a number of us have heard about that at this point.
I am back. Thank you.
Okay, Ed. I want Ed to meet Ed. This is Ed Nahenke. And,
hey, Ed, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. So nice you could come to critique our session. Thank you.
I'm always looking to see what people shoot.
Okay.
So let's go to the first image, and
okay.
tell me a little bit about yourself, Ed.
Well, I'm an electrical engineer, and I started taking pictures when I was 16, and wow. I had my own dark room and everything, and my buddies, we all love to take pictures, and I've been taking them ever since.
Excellent.
And I tried to pick 4 pictures with interesting perspectives. That's going to be our next contest.
Okay.
And I just love this picture of this lady looking this way with the 2 dogs looking that way, and the other dogs looking the other way. It just struck me so interesting, you know.
You bet.
Interesting perspective.
My first thought was, who's walking whom? Because the way the dogs are sitting and one lying down, and she looks so comfortable squatting, it's kind of like, okay, number one, what are they looking at? And number 2, how long have they been there looking at whatever? Okay, which is kind of fascinating. But it is, it's a great capture. The story itself could be multitude. So it really, you have an open-ended story, if you will, and the exposure is very good. The dog on the right, his shoulders, just a little bit of brightness. It's a little hot. You can kind of tone that down just a tad. And then if you look really closely at the dog on the right, his right eye is showing a red eye. So try and fix that in your software. Just zoom in and fix that. And what I also would do to make it a stronger image is to crop those stairs at the very top of your image. You see those stairs? And you got a couple white things that are a little distracting. Crop that image down to the bushes, and that'll make it stronger. But it's a wonderful image. And again, I would have loved to have seen her face. I'd love to see the expression on her face. I don't know if that was possible or if this was just a quick candid.
Okay. Ed looks like he may have dropped from the stream.
Oh, no.
But we have 3 more of his photos to do. I'm hoping he's going to be able to reconnect back in.
Okay.
And in any event, I would really like, maybe we can go ahead and look at his next 3 images and
sure.
Just keep working through it. And when he gets to see the recording, he can pick up your comments from there.
Ron and
sure.
Ed, do you want to bounce over to Bob real quick?
Yeah, we could do that. Bob,
You
are
want to
you
do
ready?
that? Yeah.
Okay. All right, here's Bob Weber.
Bob,
Bob.
good evening. How you doing?
Hi, good evening.
Tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm a biomedical engineer, retired. I started photography as a child, making my own camera out of cardboard and a lens from my grandmother's opera glasses.
Good for you.
I'm interested in sort of sharing things that I find interesting, like mechanisms, details
Sure.
of plants, experimental or eclectic, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
And just
Yep.
trying things out to see what the heck happens.
Sure, sure. I'm a scientist myself, so I'm always playing and trying new things. So I applaud you for
Great.
doing that. Let's go to your first image and tell me what you saw here.
This is the ceiling of the Healing Garden in University of Maryland Hospital in Baltimore.
Oh, wow.
And it's a panorama that goes vertically.
Right.
So I'm starting at one end and then sweeping the camera up and up over myself and then coming down at the other end. So this is essentially sideways.
Wow.
And what I was
Okay.
interested in is the ceiling itself, this fine meshwork. The image is a bit sort of lopsided because I was doing it with a cell phone and I had no tripod
Okay.
to steady it. So
Okay, sure, sure. I would, when I first saw this image, I was a little disoriented. And now that you've
yes,
explained it, I understand why. I love the texture and the geometry on that roof. And what I would do is I would go back. Do you have a fisheye lens?
that's one of the few I don't have.
Okay. But I would go back, well, then use, grab the widest angle lens you have
Mm-hmm.
and go back with your tripod and camera and shoot that roof again. Because I see what you're trying to show me, namely what this roof is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And it is kind of fascinating just looking at it and seeing what it's attached to. The reason I bring up a fisheye lens is, usually they're like 8 millimeters to 14 millimeters. So your 14 millimeter end will act like a very wide angle, whereas your 8 millimeter would be like a circle. And that'll give you some very interesting perspectives if you're shooting a roof. I've done something similar with a couple of cathedrals. And for those of you who have shot architecture, and namely cathedrals shooting straight up, the perspective can be a little bit of the same. But what I did was I shot it at 8 and then I shot it at 14 and I combined the images and it just turned out to be stunning, just absolutely stunning. So I would recommend you go back and try and reshoot this and see
we
what
could
you
do the
come up
panorama
with.
as well, combine the, say, 14 millimeter and the panorama effect together.
See what you get. Yes. Yes, I
yeah.
would try that because
Yeah,
this roof, I have to assume, is quite large.
Oh, yes, yes.
I mean, this is a big center courtyard area.
Right, it is.
Yeah, I would try that just for grins and
Oh, for
see
sure.
what you get. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
because it sounds as if you'd like to play with something like this anyway.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Excellent. I would definitely give that a try. But yeah, now that you've explained it to me, I could really see it better if I tilt my head and look at it from left to right.
Yeah, that's what you have to do.
Yes, yes. Interesting, interesting. Go ahead and further develop that.
Indeed, I intend to.
Good. Okay, next one.
Um, as some of the club members have mentioned, we have an interesting perspectives theme.
Right.
And I titled this one, Looking Up Relatives.
Yep.
It's actually a memorial garden, and these are the plaques to the various people interned there.
Okay.
So I thought I would just put the camera on the ground and
Gotcha.
shoot up.
Gotcha.
Hence the title.
Yes. This is a very unusual perspective, which you don't normally see. And what I would try and do, though, just to make the image better or different for sure, using the term better is quite relative, but to make the image more focused, you may want to try and get one of the plaques in its entirety, where here you have two partial plaques right up front, because if you have text like this, people tend to try and read them. And that was one of the first things that I tried to do. And I was a little frustrated in the context of I couldn't see everything. So I would go back and try and focus on a plaque that would be in your foreground. It doesn't matter what the background is. I mean, you obviously have other plaques, but if you can ascertain what the first one is, then your mind will allow you to accept the ones that you can't see in the background. But the ones up front, you're right, exactly. It's kind of like looking at an image, a landscape image, where your frontal piece and your mid-range is totally sharp. It doesn't matter if your background is totally sharp, because your mind is already telling you, well, what I see already is sharp, so the back end must be okay. It's just a little mind trick that your eyes play with you, play with your brain when you're looking at photographs. But I do like what you're trying to do here as well.
I have other versions of this where the plaque is in the center.
Okay.
I chose this one because I was much more interested in the color of the flowers.
The flowers, yeah, the colors are
rather
great.
Than the plaques.
Right.
But yeah, I have both versions.
Okay. I would go back. Yeah, I mean, for me, for some odd reason, I just wanted to see the rest of the plaque because it almost looks incomplete, if you will.
Right, because the plaques are cut off.
Right. And again, the plaques are part of the story. So if our images are telling a story, then we want to have the information in that image to complete that story, if you will. And that to me is the whole part of being creative. And you could very easily have those flowers that you currently have there still in the image and be able to be quite remarkable, because yes, you do have a very nice combination of colors. It's a very nice color palette with all the different flowers. But yeah, try that again and just double check the exposure on the flowers itself. You see how the left side of the container and the left side of the yellow is just a little bit hot? Yeah, just try and tone that down a bit to give it more depth and texture again.
And the side of the glass too.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
But I've never seen a shot like this before. So you're commended on looking at a totally different angle and perspective. But I like this. Yeah, I like what you're doing. Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, number 3. This is beautiful. Yeah.
This is, as you might guess, this is actually a spider.
Yep.
And it's one image, but it's been folded to make it mirror symmetric.
Excellent.
And it ends up looking like a mask.
Excellent. Well, I'll tell you what impresses me the most. The shape of the spider and the shape of the web. Look at all the triangles you have there. We were just talking about geometry, and you have got multiple triangles intersecting one another in this image. And it's absolutely stunning. It really is. I really, really like this. Again,
thank you.
the lower part of the spider and maybe a little bit of the legs on the left and right along the abdomen, just kind of burn that down just a hair, pardon the pun. And
Right.
you'll actually start seeing the face that you have there. You see the two eyes and the nose? Yeah, which I think is fascinating. Now, this is a great image. I mean, other than those two little things that I mentioned, this is a great image. Can you tell me what kind of spider it is?
One that happened to be on our bird feeder.
Okay. All right. No. That's fair enough. Yeah. Very, very
I'm not
nice.
very good at identifying creatures. I just like looking at them.
Sure. And of course, it was backlit very nicely. Yes.
Right. Yeah, that was just fortunate.
Great capture.
Thank you.
Very great capture. And I love the fact that you have a face in there too.
That's sort of an accident. I only saw it when I folded it, and it's like, oh, I got a face there.
That's nice. That's very nice. Okay, next image.
Okay, this one is a sort of conventional one for me, at least.
But I know where you shot this. I think I know where you shot this.
It's the Lotus Garden down by Anacostia. Yeah, that's it.
At Kenilworth, right.
Is the round umbrella against the green background.
Sure.
The problem I have with it is the lighting it's very burned out in the background.
Correct.
Trying to figure out how to balance the two.
The first thing I would try, that would be very easy to try, is put a vignette around your corners and sides. If you use Lightroom, you have a lot of latitude and a lot of ways to adjust the center of where you want to put the center of your vignette and how much you want to darken it down.
Right.
Do you have Lightroom?
No.
No?
I have something. I have Paint Shop.
Okay.
I know what you mean. And I can probably try those things out.
Okay. Yeah, because your exposure of the woman and the parasol are good. The other thing that I would try is in Lightroom, again, there's a slider called dehaze, which basically is a contrast slider. So I would try, I would try and increase your contrast just a bit because number one, I love the expression on her face. This is just so wonderful. And it's a wonderful capture because let's face it, when we all go out shooting, sometimes we wind up shooting the people instead of the flowers because there's more people than flowers there, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But this is a wonderful capture. It really is. And you just captured the moment of her really trying to get her own shot. Yeah. Good color. You have an eye for color. That's, if there's anything that I've seen in your 4 photographs is you have an eye for color. Which is a good skill to have. But try the vignettes, and if you don't have the ability to automatically bring in the corners and that, just get a light gray paintbrush and brush around her to kind of darken that down, because obviously the focus of your image is the gal with the camera and the parasol.
Right.
But nice capture, yes.
Thank you.
It's like,
I'll try that.
This is what you do when you go to Kenilworth. Yeah, we try and get there as early as possible because it can be maddening. Yeah, it can be maddening sometimes. In fact, we went there this summer and we got some great shots. No, wonderful place to visit.
Indeed.
Excellent. Anything else you'd like to comment on?
No, that's it. I think Ed's back up, so we can return to Ed.
Excellent. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
My notebook computer failed on me.
Okay.
So I'm glad we got you back, Ed.
Thank you.
So we were talking about, did you hear my suggestions about your first image, the gal with the dogs, and how to make it stronger?
Something about the dog, the right dog.
Okay, let's start there then. We'll go back to that. The right dog's left shoulder is a little hot, so kind of burn that down. And if you look at his right eye, you have a red eye.
Yes.
So go back into your software and fix that.
Okay.
And to make this also a stronger image, I would crop the top, bring that edge of the image down where it's just bushes. Because right now you've got someone's feet, some sort of rectangular container, and two signs above your bushes. So just crop it down just to get rid of it all. And then one last thing, as we were just discussing, put a little vignette in your corners, and that'll further draw the eye of the viewer to your subjects.
So there's like a little wall that goes from left to right.
Correct.
Get rid of that.
No, I would leave it, but maybe tone that down a little bit.
I'm down a little bit.
Yeah, just burn that down its head.
Oh,
It's
burn
not-
the
it's-
burn the
it's not-
brightness down.
That's correct.
Okay.
It's not too distracting because you've got most of your image with your dog walker and dogs. I mean, it would have been wonderful if it wasn't there, but hey, when you're street shooting, you got to go with what you have.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're quite welcome. So let's go to image number 2.
I took this picture in 2002 with my in Copenhagen. It was
Wow.
an amusement ride, and I was looking up, and I said, "Boy, that's pretty neat."
It is.
That would make an interesting perspective shot.
Yep.
Now that it
And-
was a cloudy day, so I learned how to change the background. So I took a picture of one of my skies that I had when I was at one of our at Annapolis, and I used that sky.
Good for you.
I used that sky because I know the judges always throw it out if it has just a blob background. You should have taken it another time of day.
Of course, of course. No, that's very well done. It's great geometry. Again, we've talked a little bit about that. And here you have a circle. And a circle is one of the strongest pieces of geometry that you can have within an image. And it's intersected by this strong vertical support. So it really is quite simple in its overall makeup and composition. What would have been great, and I know you can't, really get this all the time. I see that the gentleman that's dead center has
Yes.
his mouth open, and it's kind of like, I'd love to see just a little bit more of that face, just to make it more interesting. But I know you can't necessarily do that. But the way this image stands now is actually pretty interesting. And I applaud you for changing out the sky and making it a stronger image.
Thank you.
Yeah, because that can be tricky. But I really like this. This is a fun image. This is a very, very fun image. Okay, number 3. Tell me what you did here.
Well, I was traveling on my tours, and I saw this picture at night, and the sky was so beautiful,
Right.
and I just loved it. I just loved it. I just love looking up at the beacon.
Yes, you had a nice mackerel colored clouds there, just at sunset. Where is this location?
I don't remember. I don't remember. Someplace in Europe.
Okay, so this was part of your European experience. Yeah. The exposure is good, and this is a tough one to get. I mean, you do have quite a bit of bright light at the base where you're not seeing any of the texture as you see at the upper part. So you may get dinged for that. I don't know if you can recover that, because sometimes when you get an image that's so bright, it just totally blows out your sensor and you just can't recover it. But I would try and see if you can recover some of that, because you've got a very interesting shadow at the very base of the column, which I think is kind of fascinating and gives it some visual interest. Good exposure. I don't, good composition. I don't get all upset about something being centered. Some people do. I don't necessarily do, but if you wish, you can probably crop about maybe 2 inches off the left of your image, because I don't think that really adds much to it. You have a couple vertical structures to the left and right, which are more important in supporting your image. So yeah, try cropping the left. That will get it off center, but you still have some interesting detail with your blue sky and your mackerel colored clouds to still give it some visual interest.
What about that light on the bottom? Should I tone that down?
I would play with it. I don't find it necessarily distracting so much. If you tone down the bottom of your lighthouse and that light on the right is now competing, then by all means try and tone it down.
Okay.
Yeah, it really depends upon what's really competing. Okay, next image, number 4.
This was in Barcelona, Spain, at a concert that I went to.
Nice.
And I found it so beautiful with all the with the organ and the concert people and the figures in the back. The figures
incredible.
In the back.
Yeah, just incredible.
Yeah.
Do you know where this was?
In Barcelona, Spain.
Okay.
Hall. Uh-huh.
So this is their concert hall. Yeah, I mean, I've never seen so many sculptures like this around the orchestra. I mean, that's absolutely phenomenal, let alone the organ. It is just absolutely insane. What is again, I don't know if it's my monitor or the image, but the image looks a little skewed where the left is higher than the right. You may want to go back and look at to see how level the image is.
Okay.
I mean, you probably shot this with a wide angle lens, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably...
I did try to straighten it already.
Okay. Did you straighten out the horizon? Or did you just play with perspective?
I used a straighten feature and drew a line.
Okay. You're using Lightroom?
Photoshop.
Photoshop. Okay. Photoshop also gives you the ability to move the image along a middle line, to move the top back or the bottom back or forward. It's a tool that's in Lightroom that's called perspective. So if you open up the image in Camera Raw, you should be able to find that. I have found sometimes that when you shoot with a very wide lens, you get a little bit of distortion. And I think maybe that's what I'm seeing, where I'm getting a little bit in the corners that's then distracting my eye from that bottom length there. So you were probably closer to the right side of the orchestra than the left side.
Yes, I was.
Yeah, and that's probably why it looks a little off. Go ahead and play with that.
I think
Yeah.
that's called lens correction. Lens correction, you can use that.
Yeah, try that as well.
Lens correction.
But this is a very unusual concert hall. So you have really quite a bit of a nice historically documented image. You really do. I mean, it's a good exposure. I can see the people. Were they waiting for the people to come forward? Is that what they're doing here?
I don't remember.
I'm just looking at the empty chairs, thinking that you've got the three people there walking forward. Probably your conductor and a couple soloists.
Oh.
Interesting. Yeah. The arch in the middle is a little hot. Try and knock that down a tad.
The arch, okay.
Yeah, just underneath the organ.
Yes.
Just try and knock that down and fix the perspective, I think, and you should be good to go. The other thing that may, some people may find distracting is to the left of the organ, you have a window.
Oh, yes, up I can get rid of that.
And you don't have it on the right. So yeah, if you can, go ahead and clone that out.
Okay.
And you've got a pretty good documentary type of image from this music hall, which is kind of cool. I mean, it really is. And that's something, you know, as photographers, sometimes we lose sight of, just in terms of the whole documentary nature of what we do. We don't think too much of an image until maybe we look at it 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road, which is just absolutely fascinating. I was talking to a photojournalist and we were talking politics, and he was relaying to me a story of how he was shooting a Senate hearing, and the hearing was on a very controversial subject. And he was looking back over his images from like 10 years ago. For some odd reason, he was looking for something. But one thing he did find was that one of the senators that he shot, he also captured one of the staff lawyers for that senator that was working with that senator at the time. And it turned out to be Brett Kavanaugh. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, history can be very important, but it seems as if we have this time element built in that, you know, makes things a little bit more valuable. So just a very important concept here. So any questions from any of you all to me?
Yeah, any of the photographers who are still online here, we do have a few minutes that if you'd like to comment about any of the pictures or any of the issues. Ed's going to be with us. We should grab him while we can.
Yeah, in fact, I forgot, Cheryl, we're going to go back to your last one if we have time.
Ed, one of the things that's interesting as we went through the evening, I know that people are so dedicated to what they do. Fred is out almost every day with his camera and posting them on Facebook.
Wow.
every time I see Ed out at an event, including the Library of Congress, he's got either his Nikon or his portable camera. Cheryl has done so many just wonderful pictures of the astronomical approach that, I think you've really built that up. And likewise, John Verdi. John's new to the club, and every time this is his second time for a critique, and he really has just a unique view of things, and very thoughtful about what he's putting together. So it's been interesting, and of course the inimitable Bob Weber, who always happens to have something you just didn't quite expect, be it a folded spider or what it is. But
that's great.
He's just constantly working. I worry sometimes when I see his work,
I think that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. We're all crazy in our own little way, aren't we?
And that makes it more interesting.
Absolutely. So Cheryl, you want to go back to your fog shot?
Yeah, so this was in the morning. I went to the lake at dawn, and I saw the mist, and I was trying to photograph the mist, because it's hard to do because you have to focus on the highlights of the mist, and I'm just learning about how to do this.
Yep.
And anyway, so then the mist started retreating because the sun was burning it off.
Right.
And anyway, so I had to run, and I ran around the lake to this side to get the angle.
Yeah, mist and light can be extremely fleeting. It can be extremely rewarding or extremely frustrating. I mean, just this image by itself, I think the whole bottom half, which is your reflection, doesn't really add much to it. What I think is the image, and maybe this was just a different focal length of lens, your image to me would be the upper left-hand quadrant, where you've got that beautiful grass and the sun coming through it with the fog, beautiful texture, and then the background going into the trees. That to me is more expressive than the other 3/4 of the image. And this is something actually that is, a lesson I always play with, using different focal length lenses to create your compositions. And sometimes that can be tricky, I understand, in terms of how much equipment you're hauling and what the weather conditions may be or may not be. But that also just would resonate with me a little bit more if it was just that upper left quarter, because then you get to focus on the actual fog and the land and the trees. Those are your three main elements, where right now all the other stuff I find distracting. I don't think it really adds anything to the image. And shooting fog or water against land is a very common subject that we all get attracted to. And subconsciously, just to try and explain that for you all, it's something that's actually very dynamic versus something that is not. So you've got the rigid land and moving water, and we're kind of studying that interface, which is a very interesting philosophical discussion in itself. But I like what you're trying to do here. All right. And the next time you see something like this, try getting closer, if you will, with a longer lens, if you physically cannot get closer.
Got it.
Ed, while we're talking about the fog, if we have a minute, can I ask you this? I've been judged a couple of contests recently where people had done just beautiful landscapes involving fog and mist and clouds with moon and all that. And in some of them, I've noticed there's just an awful lot of noise and I don't see a lot of that with Cheryl's hair, but from your vantage point, is that something we should be worried about, try to smooth that out, and I'm not sure how you do that, or should we just, is that just part and parcel of the subject, you just take it with it?
Well, that's an excellent question, really. For those of us who shoot a lot of wildlife, we're shooting at very high shutter speeds, and very often we use auto ISO to accommodate different lighting conditions. And my friend is Topaz Denoise. I cannot recommend a piece of software so heavily as Topaz Denoise if you're denoising a lot of your photographs. As you photograph something that is not the ideal exposure, and in this case, well, not the ideal light, but in this case, sometimes the fog, we're out there early in the morning, and we will get noise either in the fog or in the shadows. Topaz Denoise cleans up landscapes very, very beautifully. I cannot recommend that software enough. Now, is it okay to add grain back into a photograph? And the answer is yes. I've seen some very nice photographs in color that have added grain to give it a little bit more texture. And here's where you can add grain back to the fog to add more texture. That's just a little trick that I've seen some people use. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. I recently saw a photograph that I was confused about because it had noise in it.
Yeah.
And in talking about with the maker, it turned out that indeed it was a film, a photograph on film, and that this was grain right out of the original. And
right.
it had such a interesting quality with the grain to it. It really added some dimension to it. And
see, exactly.
Bother you.
Exactly. In fact, you can take a portion of an image and burn it with grain to bring out details if it's blown out. It's a trick, but it can be done well. So let's say you've got the wingtip of a bird, and because it caught more light, it's a little bit brighter. So you want to burn that wingtip down. Not only do you burn it, but you burn it with a little grain as well. I do that in Photoshop. So you burn it down and then add the grain, and it brings out the details.
Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. One of my secret weapons is my daughter, who is an artist. So we very often talk about images and artwork and everything. And I think probably the most valuable thing that she has taught me is that, if it's allowed with what we do with our images, depending upon who we submit them to, but every image is a piece of artwork. So if you've got an image that is worth being worked up, you just keep on working at it and chipping away until you're satisfied with it. I hate to admit this, but I mean, I've spent as much as 8 hours working on one image, and the results were absolutely spectacular. Yeah. And that's just me. If I tell that to some people, they look at me like I'm crazy. Mm-hmm. But it beats watching TV.
Yeah.
At any rate, any other questions?
I have one comment on the
Please.
Chat from Scott Dines. Scott says, or do the clouds make it hard to see the subject, people outlined against the sky? The blue sky is excellent negative space for emphasizing the subject. Clouds are pretty, but often unnecessary and have become a cliche or a go-to fix. Let the subject do the work, not the fix. And that comment may have been related to one of the ones of one of Ed's pictures.
Right.
I'm not sure.
With the ride, the circular ride.
Right.
I mean, there's some truth to that. Some judges or people who critique photos will look at a landscape shot, and if we were to go back to Cheryl's Glen Canyon shot, if that sky was bald, meaning just blue or some other color, the judge would just can it. It's like, oh, this is no good. Look at that sky, da 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 da. Whereas in other cases, it may be appropriate just to leave it. I think it's a bit of a judgment call. Now, to be quite honest, also, if we were to go back and discuss Ed's shot with the circular ride, we don't know what the previous sky looked like. Was it distracting or supportive? Whereas in this case, what he has there now is supporting the actual image because it has a sense of lightness, and this ride is up in the air. That's the impression that I'm being given by his use of these kinds of clouds, which are light and puffy.
All right.
So that would be a good compare and contrast to see what the original sky looked like and compare it to what this looked like here now. And again, it's a judgment call. It's not a hard and fast rule where you have to replace skies. I agree with that question. But, sometimes you try it and it does make the image stronger. Some cases it doesn't. So it's really a judgment call.
Well, Ed, I think we're getting really close to running out of time, and we've got, I just want to take a few minutes to thank everybody who made this work this evening, and I apologize for the technical hitches. Ed, you've had some led some really wonderful conversations about these images, and I think we've all are going home tonight with a little bit better.
Oh, my pleasure. Well, thank you to the photographers for submitting the images. That's the first step. You've got to get your stuff out there and let people look at it and talk about it. I've often found just tremendous insights into my own work when I have somebody else look at it. So I strongly encourage you folks to do that.
And Ed, the fact that critiques oftentimes are just done intimately at a table in a room, and you don't have an audience of the world out there on the World Wide Web. We have a few people watching from out there. So I do appreciate the courage you have been willing to do this. Cheryl, Bob, Ed, John, and Fred. It's been really good to have the conversation and have you willing to talk about yours. You notice I didn't participate in this in the past because I'm not brave enough to do this. So thank you.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
Maybe so. So Ed, thank you so much again.
You're quite welcome.
Since we may hold you to your offer on focus stacking, I'll talk to our program chair about that.
Yeah, sure. I'll be more than happy to.
And lastly, I want to make some special thanks to Mike Thomas, who has helped us all throughout the fall trying to get better ways. Bob and Mike working together, trying to get the technology working for us better and better, and John as well. John's been kind enough to make us look as well as we could for this. So to all of you, thank you for really a good fall. Let's look forward to second half of this year after the first.
Happy holidays, guys.
Happy holidays to everybody. Thanks so much.
Thank you.